Rome during the 2nd and 1st centuries BC was becoming unstable. Small farmers, once the backbone of society and the army, were losing their land to greedy patricians and being forced to become members of a growing landless class in Roman cities. This led to unrest and conflict. Lots of conflict. Before we go any further, we should mention a few important characters. First up, we have a pair of brothers, Tiberius and Gaius Gracchus. These two gentlemen tried to pass land reform laws to give land back to the people. The Senate kind of had a problem with that and ended up having them murdered in the 130s BCE for their trouble. Then we have a general, a guy by the name of Marius, who became consul of Rome in 107 BCE. He recruited soldiers from the landless poor and had them take an oath of loyalty not to Rome, but to him. And, got them by promising them land. He's going to fight and lose a civil war in the 80s BCE against another general named Lucius Cornelius Sulla, who took power away from the popular assemblies and gave it all back to the Senate, who had supported him. Sulla truly believed that what he was doing was restoring the Republic, but in a great irony, his actions would actually hasten the end of the Republic itself. In 60 BCE, a mere 20 years after the civil war between Sulla and Marius, three powerful men, the politician Crassus, who was the richest man in all of Rome, the general Pompey, who had won major victories in Spain, and the general Julius Caesar, who had won major victories in Gaul, or France, formed a ruling group called the First Triumvirate. The three men attempted to share power equally between themselves, but triumvirates are inherently unstable. When Crassus died in 53 BCE, he left Caesar and Pompey to fight between themselves for power. Several senators threw their support behind Pompey and demanded Caesar return from Gaul to Rome. And return he did, with his army crossing the Rubicon into Italy, going against hundreds of years of Roman law. What followed was a long, drawn-out civil war between Caesar and Pompey that saw Pompey fleeing Rome and Caesar pursuing him across Eastern Europe, eventually defeating him and becoming sole ruler of Rome. With Pompey's defeat, Caesar was declared dictator, or absolute ruler of Rome, in 47 BCE. While Rome declaring a dictator was not uncommon in times of trouble, what was uncommon was that in 44 BCE, Caesar was declared dictator for life. Caesar immediately shook things up. He gave land to the poor. He increased the size of the Senate from 300 to 900 members, flooding the body with his own supporters, and reformed the calendar to follow the 365-day solar calendar developed by the Egyptians. In fact, the month of July is named for Julius Caesar. Unfortunately for Caesar, a group of senators did not care for all these changes, and he was assassinated in March of 44 BCE. Caesar's assassination led to the creation of a second triumvirate. This one was made up of Octavian, Caesar's nephew/adopted son, Mark Antony, a general who had served under Caesar, and Lepidus, the third guy who didn't really matter. Lepidus was quickly pushed out of the picture, and Octavian and Antony fought a civil war against each other. At the Battle of Actium in 31 BCE, Octavian managed to defeat Antony and his ally, the Egyptian ruler Cleopatra, and become the sole ruler of Rome. According to legend, Cleopatra committed suicide by having herself bitten by an asp, a poisonous snake, while Antony fell on his sword, the traditional method of a Roman committing suicide. Supposedly he needed quite a bit of help with it and had one of his men actually shove him onto his sword. Octavian, as the last man standing in the second triumvirate, returned to Rome in victory and glory. He said that he was going to restore the Republic, but in reality he ended the Republic and became Rome's first emperor. In 27 BCE, he took on two new titles. First, Augustus, which means the revered one, a title usually reserved for the gods, and the title Imperator, or Commander-in-Chief. It's where we get the word emperor. Though Octavian maintained the structures of the Roman Republic's government, he was in complete and total control of everything. And he wasn't a bad ruler necessarily. He stabilized the empire's frontiers, expanded Rome's control in the Balkans, engaged in a series of building projects across the city of Rome and the rest of the empire. And he brought stability and peace to a rather war-torn republic. In fact, his rule from 27 BCE to 14 CE is often referred to as the Pax Romana, or the Roman peace.